We're holding this press conference so we can give the public we serve maybe the most up-to-date information we have about both of the major fires burning in Spokane County right now. I have Chief Neckels from Fire District 4 and Chief Rohrbach from Fire District 3 to come give us updates about what's going on with both of the fires they have been involved with. So we'll start with Chief Neckels. And Chief, could you give us an update?
Absolutely. Good morning, folks. Yesterday was a better day for us than the previous ones. The weather has moderated a little bit and gave us an opportunity to get out on the fire and actually focus on some structure protection for those homes we're still able to protect. We did grow about 1,000 acres during the evening last night. As you all know, smoke has been what seems like our public enemy, but really has helped us out. It's allowed the fire to behave a little better. We did have some smoke lift last night, and that's when fire activity increased for us. We didn't lose any more structures during the night. We did have one structure damaged, but we're able to stay ahead of that. One challenge that we are having is folks coming back into the fire area during the evacuation, and they pick up on things, bushes, trees, stuff that's burning inside the black that is not our primary concern, but draws our resources away from where the focus really needs to be. So again, as we look at that evacuation, if we could keep folks out of there understanding that everybody's interested in what's going on, that will help us focus our resources where they really need to focus. With that said, one of our next goals will be to try to get a good accountability of what structures have been damaged, what have been lost. At this moment, it's just we haven't had the resources that have allowed us to get a good inventory. So working on that is one of our primary objectives in the next coming days. Also a concern, as I mentioned earlier, is the smoke. It's allowed the fire to moderate some, but it's eliminated the opportunity to use aircraft on the fire. So with smoke possible lifting today, we anticipate being able to use some aircraft, but again, with that opportunity becomes the risk for increased fire behavior. So that's what we're looking at with that for now.
Yep. Thank you, Chief. Chief Rohrbach on the Grace Road fire.
Yeah, so Gray Road fire, the Medical Lake area, again, yesterday through last night, through this morning, still very active, challenging conditions out on the ground. The winds that were forecasted yesterday did materialize, so we had winds out of the northeast, as we mentioned in yesterday's briefing. There's some good news with that. The good news is as it relates to the communities of Four Lake, Medical Lake, some of the communities in and around the lake, Silver Lake, Clear Lake. Those areas with the favorable winds allowed firefighters to come in and start securing the containment lines that have been established, so they continue to make progress there. So some encouraging news there. There'll be further coordination with the Sheriff's Office as it relates to the potential in the next day or two to start reducing evacuation levels, and we're certainly focused on things like utilities, power, and getting those things reestablished so that we could get the community back in as soon as possible. But again, those conditions out on the ground continue to be really challenging, very hazardous, and we appreciate the community's understanding that it may take a little while to get them back in there safely. But we share in those interests with the community. We have firefighters with homes inside. We have firefighters who've lost their homes as well. So those are our friends. That's our community as well. So we're doing everything in our power to get folks back into those areas as soon as possible. As we discussed yesterday, with the winds out of the northeast, the southern perimeter of the fire, so down near Interstate 90, the Salnave exit, between that location and the community of Tyler, the fire continued to spot across containment lines in numerous places yesterday, pushing the fire progression to the southwest. The fire is still several miles from Tyler, so crews, we sent out additional search force out of Spokane County yesterday afternoon to assist all the resources that had already been assigned from across the state. Some of those firefighters we had working in excess of 40 hours last night just to try to establish containment lines overnight. Some good news overnight. We worked throughout the night on the southern containment lines near Interstate 90 Salnave exit south in the Brooks Road area. Those lines were established and they've been held. And so still looking to improve those lines through the morning, but the good news to report there is the threat to the community of Tyler has been reduced. But I would say that given the amount of fire perimeter, the fire is currently reported at just over 10,000 acres. We're certainly not out of the woods yet as far as it relates to securing those containment lines. Again, as Chief Neckels mentioned, there's some good news with the smoke, and then there's also some challenges that presents. Again, yesterday on Gray Road Fire, we were able to get aircraft up just for a brief period. They didn't even complete one fuel cycle. So the smoke restricts our ability for them to see, makes conditions hazardous for the pilots, and they are unable to hit their targets in those conditions. So with the smoke clearing out, we're going to put aircraft back on those fires as soon as they're available. And then the good news is the forecast is for winds lessening today, but still a northerly wind component, which could continue to push that fire on the south side. So priority today continues to be the south side of the fire, as well as securing those containment lines around all the communities, try and get the public back in as soon as possible. So as the shift progresses today, again, we'll continue to work on better mapping. We also appreciate everyone's understanding that it's really an all hands on deck. Right now we're spread extremely thin. We're trying to get accurate updates, timely updates out just as quickly as we can, but our number one priority is the safety of our community, getting the community to a safe place, minimizing the damage from the properties, including structure protection, minimizing acres burned, and our primary focus is getting that fire stopped and making that happen. But we're working very hard with public information officers and others to get timely and accurate updates out to our community members. I would say that if folks are looking where to go for that information for the Gray Road Fire, you can look to the Northeast Washington Fire Facebook site, as well as we have members updating the Spokane County Fire District 3 Facebook site for the Gray Road Fire. And just we appreciate any empathy around the workload for our members right now. Some have been going, in excess of 40 hours, working tirelessly around the clock to try and provide the best outcome for our community, and we commit to continuing that work into the future.
Thank you, Chief. To echo the words of both of the chiefs, there are a lot of people who are out on the ground working, trying to keep our community safe. We have been calling in additional resources. The state is bringing a lot of resources to bear nationwide right now. And that takes time to get those resources on the ground, but they are coming in. People can see evidence of them coming in at some of the shelters and at some of the incident command centers. They can see that the resources are coming in. We ask that the public be patient with us. We are bringing a lot of resources into bear. I will tell you from a law enforcement side, our focus now that we have not had to move the evacuation lines a whole lot in the last 24 hours, that's allowed us the opportunity to focus on securing the areas that are in the evacuation centers to make sure that there's folks in there who aren't there for ill intent, for looting or burglarizing. So we do have patrols in there. We do have some federal law enforcement agencies who have stepped in to help us with those patrols. Again, the State Patrol has been fantastic, and if you think about just the demand for traffic control to try to keep areas this size contained, and to keep areas this size, with reasonable traffic control, it is hugely manpower intensive, and we're continuing to bring resources to bear to help do that. So again, we ask the public for patience. We acknowledge that for folks who've been out of their house for going on 48 or more hours now, there's probably a lot of anxiety about whether their home is safe or not. We understand that. We hear you. We're working now to put together ways to help people know the condition and status of their house. Again, because our resources have previously been stretched so thin to fight the fire, we are just now getting the capacity to start putting that kind of data together and a plan to get that information out. So no, we're doing our best we can to get that information, and as soon as it is safe to let people back into those areas, we will let them do it. I can tell you from firsthand experience driving through some of these areas where maybe the fire burned 40 hours ago where it started, there are still active hotspots in those places and things that are still igniting and reigniting, and the fire personnel are tasked with trying to keep that from happening. But we do have public who are in there in those situations, and it's really unsafe for them to be there. I understand people want to help, and our public has been extremely generous with each other, coming to help each other with animals, properties. The outpouring of service to first responders has been amazing, and we cannot thank the public enough for that. But please, where the evacuation zones are, the level 3 evacuation zones, avoid being in there as much as possible. It just will help everybody involved. And again, we will get people back in there as soon as we can. I have previously forgotten to thank all of our utility workers who are inside these areas looking to, stop power lines from being a threat, but also getting in and restoring power now. It is going to be a huge challenge for them, and I want to thank them for being there and working hard too, because they are in those zones in just as much danger as the firefighters and the first responders, and they're doing great, and I'd like to thank them as well. Commissioners Kuney or Kerns, do you guys have anything to add?
So I just want to add that we passed the emergency resolution yesterday, so that way it could help get the federal resources and the state resources that we need desperately. The governor's going to be in town today to assess the situation as well, and I believe he's passed his emergency declaration. So that way, those are the things that had to happen from a legislative perspective from the commissioners that we want to make sure it happened as soon as possible, so that way all these resources can be here to help them, because they are working tirelessly and they need that support.
And the other thing I would add is, another source of information is the Department of Emergency Management's website and also their Facebook page. We will be doing everything we can to deliver maps to the public so they can see where fire lines are and be able to gauge progress. And again, just please be patient with us and know that as more resources come in, we're going to be able to provide better and more accurate information more frequently. And again, also thank the state for bringing in the resources they are. It is tremendously helpful. The Department of Natural Resources have been fantastic. Any questions from you folks?
Chief Neckels, Chief Rohrbach, do you guys have any update on the size of both fires or the containment or lining of both fires?
Yeah, so on the Oregon Road fire, we're at 9,278 acres this morning. They've had good success getting the line in along the western side, but not what I would say is contained, but so far line is holding well. Still working on the eastern side, and that's where a bit of movement in the northeast corner was last night. Still have some potential movement to the south as well, but things are going as well as we could expect with the resources we have.
Yes, and so current mapping for Gray Road Fire put it at 10,200 acres this morning. We do anticipate that to change, primarily due to better mapping, and then the other variable is if the fire were to escape any of the established lines today and add new growth. So we're currently reporting a 10% containment for the Gray Road fire. But what I would remind folks who are listening, oftentimes the public thinks that once we have a fire line around a fire that we call it contained, but that's not how we report containment. So we do have lines established around the Gray Road fire, which is encouraging. We want to ensure that those lines are truly contained by getting in and mopping those areas up throughout the day, throughout the night. Again, lots of heavy equipment, dozer lines last night, getting around, particularly the southern area of the Gray Road fire. Those lines are in, and there's burn areas up and immediately adjacent to those lines, but a lot of fuels that are still burning. They'll be burning throughout the day, and so as the winds can loft embers over those areas, we have additional work to do. So before we report those fires as contained, that needs to occur. So even though Gray Road fire is reporting at 10%, there is some good news that lines are established, containment lines are established. around the fire, but we need to get in. We call that mop up, get in, find all those hot spots, take them out, and ensure that we've minimized the potential for that fire to escape.
Are you guys able to provide any more specifics on if there's been any injuries to the public or firefighters at this time?
As it relates to the Gray Road fire, again, one confirmed fatality that occurred within the first day of that event. No injuries reported, no significant injuries reported to firefighters. Of course, we're dealing with just some general fatigue, hydration issues, some general sickness with a lot of folks. There's obviously been a lot of smoke inhalation that is hard on folks. So just a lot of folks dealing with congestion, those types of things. And then as it relates to our preliminary assessment of structures lost with Gray Road, we're still sticking with the 185 structures that were done yesterday in our initial assessment, and we're working really hard to try and get the accurate assessments in coordination with the Sheriff's Office. But again, those so many efforts focused on life safety, getting the fire stopped, so we can stabilize that incident and then get in and work on infrastructure and the overall damage and getting things restored.
Yeah, and as the Oregon Road fire goes, we've been very fortunate. We had one burn injury to a citizen on the first evening. Haven't had any firefighter injuries or any other reported injuries since then. As I mentioned, it's been one of our primary objectives to get a better count on structures lost, so I'll just say there's been significant loss. Now we don't have a solid number that I can share with you at this time.
With how dry it is out here, I know there's still concern for other fires to pop up. One did on Thorpe Road near Highway 195. Is there any information on that at this time?
The only thing I know about that is through just our normal dispatch text messaging. They launched a helicopter to help support that. Other than that, I don't know any more about that. We had an additional start yesterday by 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐭 Lake. Our crews were able to pick that fire up and get it contained in a couple of hours. So yeah, that additional fire starts remains to be a huge concern of ours. With our resources already tapped on the large fires, it just straps us a little thinner if we've got to chase another fire.
And I believe Spokane Fire Department was responding to that fire that's south on Thorpe right now.
Again, 2 additional starts, I'm aware of just in Fire District 3 on the day the event occurred. Thanks to some quick response firefighters and some assistance from some passerbys. Both those fires were suppressed. But again, the fire danger continues to be extreme, so any new ignitions are going to be very challenging to suppress. And for perspective, today the incident meteorologists were reporting a significant improvement in relative humidities. But that improvement was up to 20%, and just for the general public's awareness, we would still consider 20% relative humidity very low, very challenging fire conditions, and just for perspective, newspaper would be roughly 14% of moisture. So again, very dry. Any new starts are going to be extremely challenging. Anything the community can do to help us minimize new starts is greatly appreciated.
With rain forecast for the next couple of days, how do you believe that will impact the firefighting?
That's a great question, and of course, rain can be beneficial. But one of the things we watch for is high pressure, low pressure weather systems mix. It can create a lot of instability. That can create shifting winds around the fire. Sometimes in August, moisture amounts are very challenging to predict for the forecasters. And so you don't know, are you going to get the outflow winds from a thunder cell? Or are you going to get conditions that are going to be helpful? Or are you going to get conditions that could be really challenging? So we're cautiously optimistic that we'll see some moisture with that'll help improve conditions, but we're also prepared for the challenges that can present themselves as we see cold fronts and high pressure systems mixing.
One last question I've got here. We've seen multiple urban wildfires this year and threatening multiple structures. I know that every time this happens, the kitchen sink is thrown into this. Moving forward, I mean, is this something you expect to happen in the future? Is this a one-off? How do we prepare for something like this moving forward?
Yeah, and it's certainly, we've talked about it over the years. We continue to brief on it, we train on it, annually. We know the potential that exists in Spokane County. The city of Spokane has been identified as the 4th most at-risk community in the state of Washington. For perspective, the most recent census data in just Fire District 3, so southwest Spokane County, shows a 6% increase in population growth. So we have one of the most at-risk communities in the state, and we probably have one of the fastest growing wildland-urban interfaces in the state, and that's certainly
the case for our district.
Yeah, so we put more and more homes in that wildland environment, and over 90% of our fires in Spokane County are human caused. So as we put more people in that environment, we do anticipate an increase in the number of fire starts as well, and then of course more homes in that environment. So all those things make conditions more challenging for firefighters and our community. The good news is that we have such a great community. There's heightened awareness around wildfires, and there's a lot of great work going in and around homes to try and make those homes defensible, trying to make them, fire-wise. All the agencies here represented have access to individuals that can come out, do home assessments, help our community become more fire safe, establish defensible space around those homes. But to the question, we anticipate these challenges to continue into the future, and we're going to need our community's help in solving those.
I think it's important to note that part of what had made these fires so dangerous is the kind of very rare combination of high fuel loads, dry temperatures, and high wind. That's what made this, and it doesn't always come together like that, thankfully. But unfortunately, this last Friday, it did. And that's what made these that much more dangerous.
Sheriff Knowles, there's been some speculation online that perhaps these fires were caused intentionally. Do you have any evidence to suggest that at this point?
We don't have any evidence of that being the case, but remember, the origin is still under investigation. And that's something that we will be conducting as a group. I know Department of Natural Resources has investigators out on the ground. I saw them out working the Oregon Road Fire yesterday. So that is being investigated, and again, while it's being investigated, I don't know that we have any information that we can share about that right now.
For the people that are asking about their homes in Medical Lake, how are you communicating with those people? I'm sure they're asking, can you stop by my address? Can you send photos, anything? How does that work?
Yeah, so the phones continue to ring constantly at the fire station. We're really trying to coordinate with the incident management team that's in place that is assisting with that event, and we're trying to coordinate with the Sheriff's Office and get accurate and timely information out. And so right now we're just asking for patience while we're spread extremely thin, trying to ensure we've got the fire stopped, we've got the community in a safe place, and then we can get in, accurately assess that, get out accurate information back to them.
Taking into consideration that you guys are spread very thin and working tirelessly every day, how often can the public anticipate an update like this? Or should they just turn to the social media pages that you mentioned for the latest information?
We will continue to brief as time allows, but the media pages are going to have multiple updates throughout the day. There's public information officers in place already. There's additional public information officers coming in from across the state, across the nation, to help with getting that information out. But that's going to be the best source of information. Are going to be those social media sites throughout the day, because they'll try to provide multiple updates.
And I would say as we get more media resources in and more incident command resources in, that will free local leaders up to maybe start engaging with the public a little more frequently. As much as I'd like to say we've done a great job so far, we've done what we could, and I think now as resources come in, we're going to be able to do a better job than we maybe have done so far.
Sheriff, to your point, there is a national level incident management team ordered, and some of the folks from that team have started to drift in already. Chief, I don't know if you've seen any out at your fire, but we've had a couple there this morning, and as Chief Rohrbach just said, that will boost our public information availability and opportunity significantly, because they'll bring us staff to deal with just that. So looking forward to that additional horsepower that team will bring us, not only in the firefight, but from the public information perspective as well.
We're good. Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.